The alarm bells rang across the bridge of the New Horizon as Captain Jake Morrison watched something impossible happen on his main screen. 3 whole planets in the Kepler system were turning white. Not just white like snow, but a terrible cold. White that spread across entire continents in minutes. "What the hell is that?" Jake asked his crew. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was already working at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. "Sir, I'm reading temperatures dropping to -200 degrees across all 3 worlds," she said. Her voice shook a little. "That's not possible. Nothing can freeze that fast." Chief Engineer Mike Chen looked up from his console. "Captain, the ice isn't just on the surface, it's going all the way through the planets. The cores are freezing solid." Jake felt his stomach drop. Those planets had millions of people living on them. Had. Past tense now. "Any survivors?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Communications Officer Lisa Park shook her head. "All. Signals stopped 3 minutes ago, sir. Everything just stopped." Jake stared at the screen. The 3 planets looked like giant ice balls now. Beautiful in a horrible way, like someone had taken a cosmic freeze ray and just pointed it at entire worlds. "Sir," Kate said quietly, "something's moving out there." On the screen, space itself seemed to be getting darker around the frozen planets. Not dark like when lights go out, but dark like something was eating the light itself. Jake had been in space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "Get us out of here," he ordered. "Full speed back to Earth. We need to report this." As the New Horizon turned away from the Kepler system, Jake watched the darkness spread. Whatever was doing this wasn't done. It was moving to the next star system. 2 days later, Jake stood in Admiral Helen Brooks's office on Earth. The Admiral was a tough woman who had seen everything space could throw at humans, but even she looked worried as she read Jake's report. 12. "More systems have gone dark since you left Kepler," she said. "The alien species are calling it the Void Wraith. They say it happened before, a long time ago." "How long ago?" Jake asked. "Millions of years, maybe longer. The records aren't clear." Admiral Brooks pulled up a star map on her wall screen. Red dots marked the dead systems. There were too many red dots. "The Galactic Council is meeting on Nexus Prime. They want human representatives there." Jake wasn't surprised. Humans were still the new kids in the galaxy. Most alien species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, before humans even invented the wheel. But when trouble came, they often looked to humans for ideas. Humans had a reputation for thinking outside the box. "What do the aliens know about this Wraith thing?" Jake asked. "Not much. It feeds on heat and life. It can't be fought with normal weapons. Last time it woke up, it almost killed everything in the galaxy before it went back to sleep." "How did they stop it before?" Admiral Brooks shook her head. "They didn't. It just stopped on its own. But that was when the galaxy had fewer living worlds. Now there are thousands of inhabited planets. If this thing eats them all..." She didn't need to finish. Jake understood. This wasn't just about few frozen planets anymore. This was about everything. 3 days later, Jake found himself on Nexus Prime, the biggest space station in the galaxy. The main council chamber was huge, with seats for representatives from 12 different alien species. Jake had been to council meetings before, but this one felt different. Fear hung in the air like smoke. The Zephyrians were there, looking like walking crystals that caught the light and threw it around the room. The ethereals floated in their containment suits, their gas-like bodies swirling with worry. The constructors sat perfectly still, but Jake could see their mechanical parts twitching with stress. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrians spoke first. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "The ancient records speak of the Void Wraith as the consumer of warmth, the ender of life. When it last walked among the stars, entire civilizations vanished in ice." "How many worlds did it take?" asked Admiral Brooks, who had come with Jake. As the senior human representative, thousands, maybe more. The records from that time are incomplete. Many who might have written them were frozen before they could finish. An ethereal representative floated forward. Our people remember the Great Silence, a time when no signals came from half the galaxy. We thought it was just the end of some civilizations, the way civilizations sometimes end. We did not know about the Wraith. Jake listened to the aliens talk about their fears, their ancient memories, their powerful weapons that couldn't touch this thing. They were all so much older than humanity, so much more advanced. But they were also terrified. Finally, Admiral Brooks stood up. "What's the plan?" she asked simply. The room went quiet. Jake could hear the station's life support systems humming. "Plan?" asked Veltar. "The plan is to evacuate, to run, to hope the Wraith goes back to sleep before it reaches the core worlds." "That's not a plan," Admiral Brooks said. "That's giving up." "What else can we do?" demanded a constructor unit. "This entity operates outside known physics. Our greatest weapons cannot touch it. Our finest minds cannot understand it." Jake found himself standing up. All the alien representatives turned to look at him. Their eyes, or whatever they used to see, were full of hopelessness. "We don't run," Jake said simply. "Humans don't run from problems, we solve them." "Captain Morrison," Veltar said gently, "your species is brave, but this is beyond courage. This is beyond possibility." Jake smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but it wasn't scared either. "Yeah, well, humans have a pretty good track record with impossible things." Admiral Brooks stepped up beside him. "The human government is prepared to commit all our resources to stopping this threat. Our scientists are already working on the problem." "You cannot fight ice with fire," said an ethereal. "The Wraith consumes heat. The more energy you use against it, the stronger it becomes." "Then maybe we don't fight it," Jake said. "Maybe we think of something else." The aliens looked at each other. Jake could see them thinking the same thing they always thought about humans. These people are crazy. Maybe they were right. But crazy had worked for humans before. As the meeting ended and the alien representatives filed out, talking quietly among themselves, Admiral Brooks put her hand on Jake's shoulder. "Think you can back up that confidence, Captain?" Jake looked out the station's main window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Wraith was turning living worlds into ice balls. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were dying in the cold. "We'll figure something out," he said. "We always do." Admiral Brooks nodded. "Then let's get to work. Because if we're wrong about this, there won't be a galaxy left to save." As they walked toward the human section of the station, Jake couldn't help but think about what he'd said to the aliens. Humans don't run. They solve problems, even impossible ones. He just hoped he was right. While alien fleets ran away from the spreading ice, human ships moved toward it. Commander Steve Walsh stood in the engine room of the research vessel Terra Nova, watching his team work on something that most people would call crazy. "Betty, how's the thermal shield coming along?" he asked. Betty Thompson looked up from the fusion reactor she was rebuilding. Her face was covered in grease, but she was smiling. "Almost ready, Commander. Carlos thinks I'm nuts, but I think this will work." Carlos Rivera shook his head as he welded new pipes to the reactor core. "I don't think you're nuts, Betty. I know you're nuts. We're trying to make a shield out of the same thing that powers our ship. If this goes wrong, we'll blow up before the ice gets us." "Better than freezing to death," Betty said cheerfully. Steve had to agree. The human approach to the Void Wraith was simple. If you can't go around it, go through it. While the aliens built bigger and faster ships to run away, humans were building ships that could work in the frozen zones. Back on Earth, Dr. Maya Rodriguez stared at her computer screen. She had been studying the Wraith's ice for 3 weeks. Now, ever since Captain Morrison brought back samples from the Kepler system, the ice wasn't normal ice, it was something else entirely. "Tony, look at this," she called to Dr. Tony Adams, who was working at the next desk. Tony walked over and looked at her screen. The numbers there didn't make sense. "The ice has quantum properties?" "Not just quantum properties, it's connected to ice on other planets. All the ice the Wraith makes is connected somehow. Like it's all one big thing." Tony sat down hard. "That's impossible. The planets are light years apart." "I know. But look at the test results. When I heat up ice from Kepler, ice from the Rigel system gets warmer too. They're connected through something we don't understand. Maya had an idea forming in her head. A crazy idea, but maybe crazy was what they needed. Tony, what if we could use that connection? What if we could send something through the ice network? Like what? Heat. Controlled heat. Not to melt the ice, but to disrupt whatever connects it all together. Tony looked at the numbers again. We'd need something that could create heat and cold at the same time. Something that could explode and freeze at the same moment. A thermal torpedo, Maya said quietly. It could work. While the scientists worked on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was leading the most dangerous missions in human history. His ship, the New Horizon, now had Betty Thompson's thermal shields installed. The shields looked like giant metal wings covered in glowing tubes. They weren't pretty, but they worked. Entering the frozen zone now, reported Kate Sullivan from her position at the navigation station. Jake watched the temperature readings drop. Outside the ship, space itself was starting to turn white. Not white like stars, but white like ice. The Wraith's influence was so strong here that it was freezing the empty space between planets. Shields holding, reported Mike Chen from engineering. Temperature inside the ship is staying normal. Lisa Park looked up from her communication station. Sir, I'm getting some strange readings. There are patterns in the ice formations on the surface of that dead planet. Jake looked at the main screen. The planet below them was covered in ice spires that reached up toward space. But Lisa was right, they weren't random. The spires formed patterns like someone had arranged them on purpose. Can you make sense of the patterns? Jake asked. I think they might be some kind of language, sir. The Wraith might be trying to communicate. That was new. All the alien reports said the Wraith just consumed and destroyed. Nobody had mentioned it trying to talk. Keep working on it, Jake ordered. If this thing is trying to say something, we need to know what. Back on the Terra Nova, Commander Walsh was testing his thermal shields in real combat conditions. His ship was deeper in the frozen zone than any vessel had ever gone before. The ice here was so thick that their sensors couldn't see through it. Commander, called Danny Foster from the weapons station. I'm reading movement in the ice. Something big. Steve looked at his screens. There was definitely something moving under the ice on the planet's surface, something huge. Amy, what do you think? He asked Dr. Amy Clark, the team's alien life expert. Dr. Clark studied her readings. The movement patterns are too regular to be natural, but they're not like any alien life form I know about either. Could it be the Wraith itself? Maybe. Or maybe it's something the Wraith is keeping alive under the ice. That was a disturbing thought. The idea that the Wraith might be preserving life instead of destroying it changed everything. On Earth, Admiral Brooks called a meeting of all the human research teams. The main conference room was packed with scientists, engineers, and military officers. Everyone looked tired. They had been working non-stop for weeks. What do we know? Admiral Brooks asked simply. Dr. Rodriguez stood up first. The ice is connected, through quantum entanglement. All of it. Every frozen planet is part of one big network. Dr. Adams added, we think we can disrupt that network with thermal torpedoes, devices that create heat and cold at the same time. Commander Walsh's voice came through the video link from his ship. The Wraith isn't just destroying life, it's doing something else. We've found signs that it might be preserving things under the ice. Captain Morrison appeared on another screen. Lisa has made progress on the ice language. It's definitely communication, but she needs more time to figure out what it's saying. Admiral Brooks listened to all the reports. Then she made a decision that surprised everyone. We're not just going to defend against this thing, she said. We're going to understand it. If the Wraith is trying to communicate, we need to know what it wants. If it's preserving life, we need to know why. Dr. Clark raised her hand. Admiral, the alien species are expecting us to find a way to destroy the Wraith. They won't understand if we try to talk to it instead. Then we don't tell them yet, Admiral Brooks said simply. We keep working on weapons in case we need them. But we also work on communication. Humans have always solved problems by understanding them first. As the meeting ended, Jake Morrison stayed on the video link. Admiral, there's something else. The deeper we go into the frozen zones, the more we find signs of the Wraith's presence. But it doesn't feel hostile. It feels sad. Sad? Yes, ma'am. Like it's in pain. Like it doesn't want to be doing this. Admiral Brooks thought about that. A cosmic entity that froze entire planets but might be trying to communicate. That preserved life under ice. That felt sad about what it was doing. Keep investigating, Captain. All of you. We're missing something important here. As the human, teams got back to work. Messages came in from around the galaxy. More worlds were freezing. The alien evacuation fleets were running out of places to run to. Time was running short. But humans had learned something important. The Void Wraith wasn't just a destroyer. It was something else. Something that might be reasoned with, understood, maybe even helped. The question was, could they figure out what it wanted before it froze the entire galaxy? In her lab, Maya Rodriguez looked at her thermal torpedo designs and had a new thought. What if they didn't need to disrupt the ice network? What if they needed to use it? What if the network was the key to understanding the Wraith itself? She picked up her phone to call Dr. Adams. They had work to do. Lisa Park sat in her small lab on the New Horizon, surrounded by ice crystals and alien communication equipment. She had been working for 6 weeks straight, trying to understand the patterns the Wraith made with its ice. Her eyes were red from staring at screens, but she finally had something. Captain Morrison to the communication lab, please. She called over the ship's intercom. Jake arrived within minutes. What do you have, Lisa? Lisa pointed to her main screen where ice crystal patterns were arranged in complex shapes. I cracked. It, sir? The Wraith is definitely trying to communicate, but what it's saying, it's not what we expected. What's it saying? Lisa took a deep breath. It's dying, Captain. The Wraith is dying, and it's trying to preserve life before it dies. The freezing isn't an attack, it's trying to save everything. Jake stared at the screen. Save everything? By freezing it? Think about it, sir. If you're dying and you want to make sure the people you care about survive, what do? You put them somewhere safe. The Wraith thinks freezing is safety. Jake felt his world shift. Everything they thought they knew about the crisis was wrong. The Wraith wasn't a destroyer. It was trying to be a protector. Lisa, are you sure about this? As sure as I can be, sir. The ice patterns repeat the same message over and over. Must preserve, must save, time ending. Life must continue. Jake immediately called Admiral Brooks on Earth. Within an hour, every human research team was looking at Lisa's translation. The reaction was mixed. Dr. Rodriguez was fascinated. This changes everything. If the Wraith thinks it's helping, maybe we can work with it instead of against it. Dr. Adams wasn't so sure. Even if it means well, it's still killing billions of people. Good intentions don't bring back the dead. Commander Walsh spoke from his ship in the frozen zones. There's more. We've been exploring the ice cities the Wraith builds. There are life forms inside them. Frozen, but alive. We think the Wraith is actually keeping them in suspended animation. The news split the human leadership. Some wanted to find a way to help the Wraith die peacefully. Others wanted to find a way to stop it from freezing more worlds. Admiral Brooks made the decision that surprised everyone. We're going to do both, she announced at the emergency meeting. We're going to build stations that can keep people alive in the frozen zones, and we're going to find the Wraith's core consciousness and try to help it. Dr. Clark raised her hand. Admiral, the alien species aren't going to understand this. They want the Wraith destroyed, not helped. Then we show them there's another way, Admiral Brooks said. Commander Jerry Brooks will lead the station building project. Jerry Brooks, the Admiral's son, was an engineer like his mother had been before she became military. He stood up at the meeting with a tablet full of designs. We call them ARC stations, he said, showing his plans to the room. Mobile habitats that can work inside the Wraith's frozen zones. Each one can hold 50,000 people and keep them alive indefinitely. The designs were incredible. The stations looked like giant snowflakes made of metal and glass. They would use the Wraith's own ice as a power source, turning the freezing energy back into heat and light. "How long to build them?" asked Admiral Brooks. 6 months for the first one, if we have help from the alien species. "You'll have help?" Admiral Brooks promised. "I'll make sure of it." Getting alien help wasn't easy. When Admiral Brooks presented the ARC station plans to the Galactic Council, the reaction was hostile. "You want us to build homes inside the death zones?" Ambassador Veltar asked in disbelief. "You want us to live with the thing that's destroying our worlds?" "The Wraith isn't trying to destroy anything," Admiral Brooks explained. "It's trying to save life the only way it knows how." An ethereal representative floated forward angrily. "Tell that to the billions who have died in the ice." "They're not dead," Commander Walsh said, joining the meeting by video link. "We've confirmed it. The Wraith is keeping them in suspended animation. They can be revived." The room went quiet. This was news no one had expected. "You're saying everyone who was frozen is still alive?" asked a constructor unit. "Yes. The Wraith doesn't know how to preserve life properly, but it's doing its best. If we can teach it better ways, if we can work with it instead of against it, we might be able to save everyone." The debate went on for hours. Finally, the Zephyrian engineer Keelneth spoke up. "I will help build these ARC stations. If there is a chance to save lives instead of just running away, we must try." Constructor Unit Prime 7 agreed. "My people will provide manufacturing capabilities." One by one, the alien species agreed to help with the project, not because they liked the idea, but because humans had given them something they had lost: hope. While the ARC stations were being built, Jake Morrison made the most important discovery of all. Deep in the frozen zones, his ship's sensors found something incredible. "Captain," Kate Sullivan called out, "I'm reading a massive structure at the center of this dead system. It's huge, sir. Bigger than anything we've ever seen." Jake looked at the readings. The structure was the size of a small moon made entirely of ice, and it was beautiful. It looked like a cathedral made of crystal, with spires that reached out in all directions. "That's it," Jake said quietly. "That's where the Wraith lives." Dr. Adams' voice came over the communication system from Earth. "Captain, our calculations show that if you can reach that structure, you might be able to communicate directly with the Wraith's core consciousness, but the journey will be incredibly dangerous." "How dangerous?" "The temperature near the cathedral drops to almost absolute zero. Space itself starts to crystallize. Normal ships can't survive the trip." Jake smiled grimly. "Good thing we don't use normal ships anymore." The New Horizon had been upgraded with the most advanced thermal shields human science could build. Dr. Clark had developed new suits that could keep humans alive even in the worst cold. It would still be dangerous, but it was possible. "Admiral?" Jake called Earth, requesting permission to attempt contact with the Wraith at its core location. Admiral Brooks was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, if you're wrong about the Wraith's intentions, you'll be flying your ship into the heart of the enemy's power. If we're right, we'll be flying into the heart of a dying creature that's trying to save the galaxy and doesn't know how." "Permission?" "Granted, Captain, but you're not going alone." Within days, 12 human ships were ready for the journey to the Ice Cathedral. Each ship had a volunteer crew and representatives from the alien species who believed in the human plan. Captain Sarah White brought her ship Thunder Bay. Captain Bob Martinez commanded the Starwalker. Captain Linda Johnson led the crew of the Dream Chaser. As the small fleet prepared to leave for the galaxy's center, Jerry Brooks finished the first ARC station. It was beautiful and strange, like a flower made of metal that could bloom in the heart of winter. "First families are moving in tomorrow," he reported to his mother. "The station works perfectly. People can live normally inside, even in the frozen zones." Admiral Brooks nodded proudly. "How many stations can we build?" "As many as we need, ma'am. The alien species are sending more help every day, even some who didn't believe in the plan at first." As Jake's fleet began its journey toward the Ice Cathedral, Admiral Brooks stood at her office window looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a dying cosmic entity was trying to save the galaxy by freezing it. Somewhere out there, Her people were about to risk everything to help it find a better way. It was the most human thing she could imagine, seeing someone in pain and trying to help, even when that someone was a cosmic force that most people feared. "Good luck, Captain Morrison," she whispered to the stars. The 12 human ships looked tiny against the ice cathedral. Jake Morrison stared at the massive structure through the New Horizons main window. It was bigger than Earth's moon, and made entirely of crystal ice that seemed to glow from within. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Temperature readings are off the charts," reported Kate Sullivan. "Space itself is starting to freeze solid around us." "Thermal shields holding," Mike Chen called from engineering. "But they're working harder than they ever have before." Captain Sarah White's voice came over the communication system from the Thunder Bay. "Jake, my ship's systems are starting to slow down. The cold is affecting our computers." Jake looked around at his crew. They were all wearing Dr. Clark's special cold suits, but he could see frost forming on the inside of their helmets. They were pushing into temperatures that no human had ever experienced. "All ships maintain formation," Jake ordered. "We're almost there." As they got closer to the cathedral, something strange happened. Jake started hearing whispers in his mind, not words exactly, but feelings. Sadness so deep it felt like drowning. Loneliness that stretched across millions of years. Fear of ending, of leaving everything behind. "Captain," Lisa Park said quietly, "I think it knows we're here." The cathedral began to change. The ice spires moved slowly, rearranging themselves into new patterns. Jake realized the entire structure was alive, or at least controlled by something alive. "It's trying to communicate with us," Lisa continued. "The whole cathedral is like one giant communication device." Dr. Rodriguez's voice came from Earth. "Captain, we're reading massive energy changes in the ice network across the galaxy. Whatever you're doing, the Wraith is paying attention." Jake made a decision that would either save the galaxy or doom his crew. "All ships move into the cathedral structure. We're going inside." "Sir," Kate protested, "we don't know what's in there." "We know what's in there," Jake said calmly. "Someone who's been alone for millions of years and doesn't know how to ask for help." The ships moved through openings in the ice walls that appeared just as they approached. Inside the cathedral, everything was light and crystal. The walls showed moving pictures made of ice, memories from across the galaxy, moments of life and death frozen in time. Jake saw the birth of stars, the evolution of species, the rise and fall of civilizations. All of it preserved in the Wraith's memory, all of it something the creature wanted to save. "My God," whispered Captain Bob Martinez from the Starwalker. "It's been watching over the galaxy for millions of years." At the center of the cathedral, they found the Wraith's core consciousness. It wasn't what Jake expected. Instead of some terrible monster, he saw something that looked almost like a person made of starlight and ice. It was beautiful and ancient, and very, very tired. The Wraith spoke, and its voice was like the sound of glaciers moving, deep and slow and full of sorrow. "You are the young ones," it said. "The ones who do not run." Jake stepped forward, his heart pounding. "We're here to help. We know you're dying. We know you're trying to save everyone." "I have tried," the Wraith said sadly. "But my way brings only cold death. I do not know how to preserve warmth, how to keep life alive instead of frozen." "We can teach you," Jake said. "Our people have built stations that can keep life warm even in the frozen zones. We can show you how." The Wraith's form flickered with something that might have been hope. "You would help me? Even though I have brought ice to your worlds?" "You were trying to save us," Jake said simply. "That's what matters." On Earth, Admiral Brooks watched the energy readings spike across the galaxy. Commander Walsh reported from his ARC station that the ice was starting to change, becoming less cold, more stable. "Admiral," Dr. Adams called out, "the thermal resonance array is ready. If Captain Morrison can convince the Wraith to accept it, we might be able to help it transform instead of die." The array was humanity's final gift to the dying entity, a way to change from a creature of ice and death into something that could nurture life instead of accidentally destroying it. Back in the cathedral, Jake felt the Wraith's consciousness touching his mind. He saw what the creature had seen. Eons of loneliness, watching civilizations rise and fall, wanting to help, but not knowing how. The Wraith had been the galaxy's lonely guardian, trying to preserve everything it loved. "I'm tired," the Wraith whispered, "so very tired. I have watched for so long, preserved what I could, but I do not know if I have done well." "You did your best," Jake said, and meant it. "But now you can do better. We all can." Captain Linda Johnson's voice crackled over the communicator. "Jake, the array is in position. The Wraith just needs to accept it." Jake looked at the ancient being before him. "We have something that can help you change. Instead of freezing life to preserve it, you could become something that helps life grow. But you have to choose." The Wraith was quiet for a long time. Around them, the cathedral's ice walls showed more memories. But now they showed the frozen worlds beginning to warm. The Ark stations full of living people, humans and aliens working together. "You would trust me with this power?" the Wraith asked. "After what I have done?" "You made mistakes," Jake said. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what you do next." The Wraith's form began to change, becoming brighter, less solid. "Then I choose to become what I should have been long ago. Not a preserver of death, but a gardener of life." The transformation was beautiful and terrible. Light exploded through the cathedral, through the ice networks, across the entire galaxy. Jake felt the Wraith's consciousness expanding, touching every frozen world, every preserved life. But instead of cold, there was warmth. Instead of death, there was awakening. On the frozen worlds, the ice began to change, not melting but transforming into something new, crystalline networks that carried warmth and light and communication. The people who had been preserved in ice began to wake up, confused but alive. Dr. Rodriguez watched from Earth as her instruments showed the impossible. "The ice is becoming a communication network. The Wraith is using it to connect every world in the galaxy." Admiral Brooks smiled as reports came in from across space. The frozen worlds were warming, but not from destruction of the ice. The ice itself was becoming something new, something that helped instead of harmed. Years later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new ship, the New Dawn. The galaxy had changed completely. The crystal networks that the transformed Wraith had created allowed instant communication between any 2 points in space. Worlds that had never been able to talk to each other were now close neighbors. The Ark stations had become the foundation for a new kind of civilization, one where humans and aliens worked together more closely than ever before. Jerry Brooks had built hundreds of them, each one a symbol of what was possible when different species cooperated. Kate Sullivan, now Captain Sullivan, walked up to Jake with a report. "Admiral Morrison, we're getting strange signals from the Andromeda Galaxy, something that might need investigating." Jake looked out at the stars, which seemed brighter now through the crystal network that connected everything. Somewhere in the network, the Wraith's consciousness lived on, no longer lonely, no longer afraid, helping life flourish across the galaxy. An alien ambassador approached him, one of the new species that had joined the galactic community through the crystal networks. "Admiral Morrison, if these new signals represent a threat, are your people prepared to help?" Jake smiled the same smile his species had been smiling for centuries when faced with the impossible. "We've got this." The phrase had become famous across the galaxy. Humans said "we've got this" galaxy froze now meant something special to every species. It meant that no problem was too big, no challenge too impossible, as long as people were willing to work together and never give up. And somewhere in the crystal networks that connected every world, the Wraith listened and learned and helped. No longer the lonely guardian of a dying galaxy, but the friend and protector of a universe full of life. The galaxy was safe. The humans had kept their promise. They really did have it covered.